The Himalayan, or Himalayan, however you prefer to pronounce it, has proved since its launch to be a very popular, practical, capable and rugged small capacity adventurer. So in this new model, the power, capacity and equipment list has been made bigger, which should make it a much more rounded bike. Let's find out. So let's start looking at some of the key stats and numbers before I take this out on a good old-fashioned motovlog road review. Capacity on the Himalayan has been increased from 411cc to 452cc, and that increase also brings more power, going from the original's 24 horsepower to now this, which puts out 40 horsepower. It is also Royal Enfield's first ever liquid-cooled engine in a production bike. It also has a ride-by-wire throttle, and that means riding modes, and it's also gone from a 5-speed gearbox to a 6-speed. The seat height is a very manageable 825mm, and it can be adjusted up to 845mm if you wish. I'm 5'10" with a 32-inch inside leg, and as you can see with the bike in its standard seating position, I can very easily flat foot this, which gives you a lot of confidence when riding this, particularly off-road. Also, if you are shorter of leg or shorter of stature, there is an optional low seat which is 805mm, and that in its raised position is the same as the standard seat at 825. This nicely shaped tank holds 17 litres of fuel, and the bike's curb weight is 196 kilos. When you look at it compared to other middleweights, that's, not terrible, but it is quite heavy for what is a 450 single. Obviously it has the crash bars on it and the rack and the center stand, and it is built to be rugged, but at 196 kilos I was a little bit disappointed. Shave 20 kilos off of that and I think we're kind of in the ballpark of where we need to be for this bike. The non-adjustable Showa 43mm upside down forks and rear monoshock with preload adjustment offers 200mm of travel, and the 2 piston calipers up front grab onto 320mm disc. The trip and navigation system is now built into the 4-inch TFT round display, which also offers phone connectivity and media controls. All lights are now LED, and there's a handy USB-C connector on the handlebars. I think that's about enough in terms of stats. The important thing is what it rides like, so let's get into that section of the video and I'll tell you all about the engine, the suspension, the comfort and my overall thoughts on this new 450 Himalayan.
Now the first thing you'll notice about this bike when you jump on it when compared to the other one is just how much peppier it does feel. It's not going to pull your arms out of your sockets, but it has got a lot more grunt than the previous model. You still have to kind of plan your overtakes, and yeah, of course there are some vibes, you've got to expect that, but overall not too bad. When I'm kind of up at the top end here where I am sort of 7,000 revs, you can feed it through the pegs, you can feed it through the bars, but no more than you would do with any other thumper. It's a lovely flexible engine, as you can see, that's 6th gear at 70 miles an hour, 5,500 revs. It will do that all day long. You're not overstressing the engine. For touring and motorway cruising, actually it is not that bad. If you're fully loaded or 2 up, okay, then you could probably say that you could do with some extra grunt, but if you want that extra grunt, you're not going to be buying a 450 single adventure bike, are you? Fueling is good. There is a bit of hesitancy off of the closed throttle, but in the time that I've been riding it, it's been great fun. This sort of stuff out around the country lanes, you don't need any more than this. And this bike is just perfect for that. Okay, so anybody that's watched my videos will recognise probably this piece of road. I'd take the bikes generally on the same kind of routes, so I can make a comparison. But let's give it a go. As you can see, it revs pretty freely. It is an engine that just does want to be revved, and it doesn't complain about it. And this is such a big difference to the previous bike, it's unbelievable. The old 410 or 411cc bike, just that little bit breathless. This much better. So as you can see, at motorway speeds, pretty good. Trumps along quite nicely. But yeah, you can ride it enthusiastically on the tarmac. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. I like it.
Now, as I said in the introduction, wire-by-wire throttle means we've got modes. We have a mode button. You've got performance with ABS on, performance with the rear ABS off, and then you've got eco mode with ABS on and eco mode with the rear ABS off. So pretty simple, straightforward, but it's nice that you got that ability to be able to switch the rear ABS off.
As I said, this has now gone from a 5-speed to a 6-speed, and it's a slick little device. It's been really nice. There is, I would say, quite a long throw, it seems, between first gear and second gear, but it's super slick. The clutch action is nice and light, it's nice and smooth. There's no quick shifter, there's no, nothing fancy. It's just a 6-speed box that's nice and slick, and it's geared well to, you've got relatively shortish ratios at the beginning, but then you've got a taller 6th gear, which means that, as you've seen, motorway speeds, it's a pretty relaxed-ish bike for a single. We're looking at the suspension and handling now, and that's another thing that's actually impressed me quite a lot with this. Now, whilst this is a simple suspension setup, it is a decent quality one. I think Showa have set this up pretty well for this bike. It's nice and firm without being crashy. It's not wallowy, which I was kind of expecting. I think they've made a really good sort of compromise between plushness and firmness. I tell you what, it does remind me a little bit of the Honda Trans Up in the way that that's set up. Obviously you've got no adjustment in the front at all, but you can adjust the preload in the rear. There's a C-spanner in the toolkit if you want to wind some more preload into that. For a bike at the price that this bike is at, I'm really impressed with it. But again, Royal Enfield have done a very good job with it. Obviously we've got a bit more ground clearance as well at 200mm, which is going to come in handy off-road, and we'll look at that a little bit later on. It's nice and nimble, it's very predictable. It's compliant, it's relatively plush, it's forgiving. I was expecting it kind of to be a bit slushy and wallowy and what have you, but not at all. Brakes are good too. We've only got a single disc, we've not got dual discs. Yeah, it is heavy, 196 kilograms, but that front brake seems to deal with it pretty well. I've never once thought I could do with twin discs. I wouldn't say it's spectacular, but it's perfectly adequate. I wouldn't worry about the brakes on this at all. So let's lift the lid on comfort and ergonomics now. Admittedly, I've not ridden this bike for a full-on long day since I've had it, but I've done 3 hours or so in the saddle in one go, and it's been comfortable. The sort of hand bump feet triangle is really good. The bars are in a nice position. My legs are at sort of 90 degrees or there or thereabouts. I've found it instantly comfortable. I think it's a really nice fit for me. When it comes to standing, again, pretty good. I maybe prefer the bars a fraction higher. Where I live, I don't have much in the way of off-road. All I've got is kind of byways like this, which are pretty simple. Having said that, this is a little bit wet and muddy down here, and these tyres are not liking it. The whole sort of handling and comfort package, for me it's the tyres that let this down. They are Seat tyres, but again, you know, it's coming in at a budget. Getting decent tyres on is a, you know, relatively easy and cheap fix. Ooh, 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 ooh. Ah, there you go. Suspension wise and clearance wise, no problem at all. It's the crappy tyres that are letting the bike down. But as I say, you know, I'm not really an off-road rider. This is the sort of stuff that I quite like exploring, and this and a few gravel trails and forest roads, and this bike is perfect for that. If you want to see what this bike is like, you know, on proper off-road terrain, then I would suggest watching Chris Northofer's videos over on Bike World, where you've got somebody who can absolutely hammer this bike in those conditions. But for the majority of people that are going to be doing relatively simple off-road stuff, no problem whatsoever. Actually, this is probably a good time to have a quick look around the bike and do a good old-fashioned walk around. I think it's a nice looking bike. You've got that high fender plus the standard low fender with a fender extender on it as well, which keeps a lot of crap off of here. I think this colour is probably my favourite. I like kind of this modern grey on a lot of bikes, and that with the blue flash looks pretty good. Crash bars, nice and substantial. They come as standard. You have a centre stand as standard. You have this rack as standard. Pretty decent pillion seat, and there's that nice big wide comfy rider seat. I think it's a nice looking bike. I think it is. I think they've done a really good job with it. But as I said at the beginning, I think Royal Enfield now just seem to be getting better and better. With every new bike that comes out, the quality just steps up that little bit. I like this rear end as well, with the three-way lights, no tail light on there. So overall, nice and comfortable, as I've said. The only thing that I will look at now, I'm getting spattered in mud where it's all coming off the tyres. Excuse me. The only thing I would say that I'm a little bit disappointed in is this screen. It is just a fly screen. It's there essentially to neaten the front end up, take a little bit of the sting out and protect that TFT clock. But it is a bit like riding a naked bike. It doesn't really give you any protection. But the main problem for me at my height, 5'10", with that screen, is it just seems to direct the wind directly onto the part of my helmet where I don't want it to go. So it actually creates noise. I don't get the benefits of a screen in terms of wind or weather protection, but I also don't get the quieter ride that I would get from a naked bike. So it's like having a naked bike with a noise making machine on the front. Now, as I say, some people it may not affect them, they may have no issues with that at all, but for me it has been a problem. I don't know if you can pick it up on the microphone, but it just throws the wind right into this part here, which is where it's going to generate all the noise. And then I guess the last thing to talk about really is the equipment. So we've already said wide by wire throttle, we've got modes. The controls are really nice. I do like the way they do these now. You've got a little rocker switch to start with. I've got a hazard button on the back there. I've got my mode button, indicators, main beam and flashing, horn, and a home button for the menus option there. If I push that to the left there, I can see my trip and my average MPG, and I've got my second trip. I've got my fuel range, a consumption as you would have it as you ride. You've got a voltage, when the service is due, engine temperature, and then we're done. So a lot of information on there, really clear screen. I really like the look of this. And of course you still have the Tripper navigation, whereas previously it was a separate little clock. This is now built into this TFT display. It's free, so you download the Royal Enfield app, connect your phone, and then you've got the navigation on there. There's no subscription or anything like that as far as I can see. You've just got a Google Maps based navigation system built in with no extras required, and I like that.
So what are my overall thoughts on the Himalayan? Well, it's actually nicely put together, and I think the quality of Royal Enfields just keeps getting better with every new model that they release. It's comfortable, it's practical, but it's still fun to ride. The fuel economy is very good, and it's the sort of bike that you can use for pretty much everything. Yes, it would be nicer if it was lighter. Obviously, with only 40 horsepower, if you could shave 10-20 kilos off of this, that would make a big difference to the performance and to a certain extent the handling. But as it is, I don't really have too much of a problem with it. It is a bit of a do-it-all bike. It feels nice and solid, it feels rugged, it feels like it's built to last, so I could live with that weight if I owned one of these. Outside of that, there's not really very much to dislike about this bike. I think Royal Enfield have done a really good job with it. I think it's a nicer looking bike than the previous one. Overall, when you consider what this bike costs and what you get for your money, I think it's a hell of a deal. Prices start at just £5,750 for the plain Cars of Brown. This slate poppy blue version and its alternative, which is slate Himalayan salt, come in at £5,850. Handler Black is £6,050, and if you want that with the optional tubeless wheels, it'll cost you £6,300. Finally, there's the Kamet White version. This is available only with tubeless wheels, and it comes in at £6,250. So I hope you found this review of the Himalayan 450 useful. If you have got any other questions, let me know in the comment section down below. And all that leaves me to say is until next time, thanks for watching, take care, ride safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.